My crew and I had finally taken a well-earned lunch break, resting under the shade of a sprawling oak tree after 5 grueling hours of labor in the sweltering 90-degree heat. We'd made solid progress on Karen's backyard patio renovation, even with her constantly hovering and criticizing everything we did. Just as I unwrapped my sandwich, the sliding glass door burst open so violently I thought it might crack. "What do you think you're doing?" Karen shouted, her face flushing that familiar angry red we'd seen too often that week. "You don't get to stop whenever you want. This isn't some union gig. This is my house and I expect it done today." I calmly explained that our contract and labor laws entitled us to a 30-minute lunch break after 5 straight hours of work. She wasn't interested. "I don't care what that worthless contract says," she snapped, dripping with disdain. "I'm the president of the HOA. I know the rules. Get back to work or I'll have your licenses yanked before you even know what hit you." When we stood our ground, she looked genuinely shocked that anyone would challenge her authority. Then, things got truly bizarre. Karen stormed over to our tools, grabbed my impact driver and threw it into the street. She reached for the nail gun next, but my foreman Tom stepped in just in time to stop her, which only set her off even more. "Don't touch me," she screeched, chucking smaller tools onto the road. "This is assault. I'm calling 911. In hindsight, the warning signs had been there from the start. Karen Westfield, who proudly proclaimed herself the most important person in Sunnyside Estates, had hired us because of our top-notch reputation. The job seemed simple enough. Upgrade her patio with high-end materials to make it the talk of the neighborhood. The generous budget should have tipped me off. From day one, she treated my team more like household help than seasoned tradesmen. She barked commands about where our gear should go, constantly second-guessed our skills, and hovered so closely that Miguel, my tile expert, nearly bumped into her multiple times. She even insisted we swap out materials we'd already bought, with no thought to the extra cost or restocking fees. She'd often sneer at our work, saying things like, "A 10-year-old could do better than this," her tone dripping with disdain. Every morning brought a fresh batch of complaints from her and a growing list of tasks that weren't part of the original agreement. "While you're at it, go ahead and fix my garden lights," she'd say with a dismissive wave. "Think of it as a favor to the HOA president who controls which contractors get permits around here." When I reminded her, politely, that any additional work required extra payment, she laughed and said, "You have no idea how many contractors would kill for my endorsement. I can make or break your business around here." The work environment quickly became unbearable. Karen refused to let us use her restroom, so my crew had to walk 2 blocks to a gas station just to relieve themselves. She would tail my workers around the yard, nitpicking their methods and suggesting they were deliberately stalling to inflate her bill. Things took a darker turn when she started withholding scheduled payments, saying she'd only pay once a day. Work met her standards, even though the payment terms were clearly outlined in the signed contract. By the end of the first week, my crew had reached their limit. Tom even proposed we cut our losses and walk off the job. But I didn't want to abandon the project halfway through. Then came the lunch break blow-up that broke the camel's back. As Karen continued berating us, calling us lazy and incompetent, she crossed a line. Pointing at Miguel, she shouted, "I saw one of your guys snooping around my garage earlier," implying he was up to something shady. "What did he take? I want to search all of your trucks, right now," Karen demanded. When I told her she had no right to inspect our personal property without any real reason, she pulled out her phone with theatrical flair. "That's it," she snapped. "You're trespassing, squatting on my property and refusing to leave." She dialed 911 and put the call on speaker, putting on a show. Her voice instantly shifted from aggressive to fragile. "This is an emergency, please. Help," she said, her tone trembling and tearful, completely unrecognizable from the furious woman we'd dealt with seconds before. "There are men on my property who won't leave. I'm scared they're damaging things and threatening me. Please, send someone quickly." It was surreal. One second she was a raging tyrant, the next she was playing the helpless victim. My crew and I exchanged stunned glances as she fabricated an entirely false account for the dispatcher. We kept our cool, packed up our personal items and began documenting the unfinished site, taking photos and videos. Something told me we'd need proof later. Within minutes, 2 officers, Martinez and Dawson, arrived clearly on edge, likely expecting chaos based on what they'd been told. Karen rushed toward them, tears now part of her act. "They've been threatening me all morning," she sobbed. "They intentionally ruined my patio so I'd have to pay for extra work, and now they're refusing to finish unless I give them double the agreed price." Officer Martinez glanced at us. 5 calm, professional workers standing by our vehicles, then back at Karen. "Can you show me the damage?" he asked. While Karen led him around, pointing at normal demolition work, I quietly showed Officer Dawson the signed contract, time-stamped photos of our progress, text messages where Karen had added tasks without agreeing to pay, and a video of her throwing our tools into the street. His expression shifted as he reviewed the evidence. "How long have you been working for her?" he asked. 8 days, I replied. "We've been documenting everything since day 3, when the problems began." When Karen returned, still dramatically spinning her story about how we'd wronged her, Officer Dawson cleared his throat, preparing to respond. "Ma'am," Officer Dawson said firmly, "I've reviewed documentation that contradicts what you've told us. This looks more like a civil contract issue than anything criminal." Just like that, Karen's theatrical act vanished. "What documentation?" she snapped. "What did they show you? It's fake, obviously manipulated. Don't you realize who I am?" She straightened up, her tone shifting back to arrogance. "I'm the president of the Sunnyside Estates HOA. One call and I'll have your supervisor on the line." That was the moment I knew, without a doubt, we were finished with this job. I told her calmly that we were terminating the contract, invoking the harassment clause, Section 6, which she had violated multiple times. We would be collecting our tools and materials and sending her an itemized invoice for the completed portion of the work. The stunned expression on her face was almost laughable. "You can't quit," she barked. "You work for me. I'll make sure you never work another job in this county." As we packed our equipment under the officer's supervision, neighbors began to come outside, drawn by the noise and activity. Sensing she was losing control and now performing for a new audience, Karen tried to spin the narrative. She raised her voice for the crowd. "I fired them for shoddy workmanship." But by then the damage was done. The truth was out and we were done with Karen for good. The neighbors had noticed a police presence, and several had seen her earlier outburst when she hurled our tools. One courageous neighbor, an elderly man named Frank, who lived across the street, quietly approached Officer Martinez. "If you're looking into how Karen treats service workers, my security cameras have recorded quite a bit over time," he said in a calm but audible voice. "And I'm not the only one with evidence." In the weeks that followed, a surge of accusations emerged, revealing the extent of Karen's abusive behavior during her time as HOA president. After we filed our civil lawsuit for harassment and breach of contract, we realized we weren't the only victims. A social media post detailing our experience triggered a wave of responses. Landscapers, roofers, plumbers, even the local pool maintenance crew shared similar accounts of Karen's bullying, withheld payments, threats to their licenses, and warnings about being blacklisted from future jobs in the neighborhood. The situation grew even more alarming as fellow residents began speaking out. Cindy, who lived 2 doors down, shared that Karen once threatened to place a lien on her home because of unapproved garden gnomes. The Williams family had been fined multiple times for vague or non-existent infractions, usually after voting against Karen's motions at HOA meetings. Numerous others revealed that Karen frequently used her master key to enter homes for inspections while residents were away. The breaking point came when David, a former HOA treasurer, turned over financial records to the police, exposing irregularities. It became clear that Karen had been authorizing payments for work done on her personal property under the guise of community maintenance. She had also forged approval signatures to get around permit requirements for her own renovations, including the very patio project she tried to shut down. Police widened their investigation and secured warrants to access HOA financial and banking records. Just 3 weeks later, Karen was arrested, ironically during an HOA meeting where she was pushing for harsher penalties on homeowners violating association rules. She was charged with fraud, embezzlement, forgery, intimidation, and the misuse of HOA funds totaling over $68,000. Karen's sentencing hearing drew a full courtroom. 2 months later, the judge, visibly disturbed by the scope of her misconduct, sentenced her to 3 years, 1 to be served in county jail and 2 on probation. She was also ordered to repay $112,000 in restitution to the HOA and affected homeowners plus court fees. When the sentence was announced, Karen's face twisted in outrage. "This is insane," she yelled as officers approached. "You don't get it. I was helping this community. I was raising property values." Her voice cracked as the weight of the situation finally sank in. "Who's going to run the HOA now? They don't know what they're doing," she cried out, still convinced she was the victim of a vendetta as she was led out of the courtroom. HOAs, homeowners associations, play an important role in maintaining property values, enforcing community standards, and managing shared amenities like pools, parks, and security. When run well, they help keep neighborhoods clean, organized, and desirable. However, they can also be overly restrictive, charge mandatory fees, and cause frustration if managed poorly or by power-hungry board members. Their importance largely depends on how effectively and fairly they operate.